Man, what is going on at Ubisoft? It's like they asked ChatGPT how to fix our dying company and it replied, have you tried turning it off and on again? These guys have been making headlines after headlines and in the worst way possible. Ex-Assassin's Creed boss suing Ubisoft, projects getting cancelled, the projects that survive getting delayed, studios getting gutted. All the while the stock price continues to hit record lows. Oh, and the layoffs. Don't forget the layoffs. Now, of course, a brain-dead tone of leadership at Ubisoft has learned nothing, and they continue to blame the gamers for being sensitive to quality and the competitive market conditions for their games failing instead of just admitting that they make low-quality dog-water games. And yet they want, or at least hope to turn Assassin's Creed, Far Cry and Rainbow Six into annual billionaire brands. I mean, with everything going on there, can they even imagine to pull this off? Instead of dreaming about annual billionaire brands, they should be a lot more worried about the minus 1 billion euros on their balance sheets, but more on that in a bit. The point is, things are really bad at Ubisoft, and their main goal for the next 2 years is to just somehow survive. And how do they plan to do that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the restructuring, the right-sizing, the cancelled projects, the $1.3 million lawsuit, and how does that fit into everything that's been happening there. Now, you probably already know this, but Ubisoft has cancelled not 1, not 2, but 6 games in development. And the highly anticipated Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake was one of them. We made the difficult decision to stop development on Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake. While the project had real potential, we weren't able to reach the level of quality you deserve, and continuing would have required, and this is the key point, more time and investment than we could responsibly commit. Now, first of all, we all know the whole level of quality you deserve is just complete bullshit, because Ubisoft doesn't give a damn about quality. I think the real reason why the game got scrapped is much simpler and straightforward. Ubisoft is once again desperate for money. Now you might be wondering, but wait. Didn't they get like $1.3 billion from Tencent just recently? Why are they still desperate for money? Well, yes, they did, but a high-interest loan of around 200 million euros was due, which I covered in my previous video, and if Ubisoft missed the deadline, the banks would have stepped in to get their money one way or another. In the worst-case scenario, they would have probably started selling Ubisoft assets to recover their money, and just by the way, that's something Ubisoft themselves are now considering, but more on that in a bit. Now, Ubisoft immediately used the Tencent money to pay off the banks, but here's where things get insane and no one's really talking about this. Right after paying off the term loan, they went ahead and acquired a new live service MOBA game in development, The March of Giants. And they didn't just acquire the game, they acquired the entire dev team as well, and that game has not been cancelled. As the CFO Frederick Duray confirmed over the earnings call, there are 4 new IPs currently in development, including The March of Giants. So there you go, Prince of Persia fans. Another live service flop game is the reason why your most anticipated game has been cancelled. And Ubisoft probably thinks that this was a smart move. Well, I mean, of course they do. Over the earnings call, the CEO, Yves Guillemot, made it clear that they are doubling down on open-world bloat games, live service flop, and player-facing generative AI, because apparently that's the future instead of, making good games. And what drives me up a wall is that even these industry analysts back this up. Action-adventure titles such as Prince of Persia were out of step with a market dominated currently by shooters like Fortnite and Call of Duty, cooperative adventure titles such as Peak, and sports titles and multiplayer games such as those available on the Roblox. Oh, for f***'s sakes. These are the type of people Ubisoft probably listens to. And that should tell you everything you need to know about the leadership at this company. The reason why March of Giants was not cancelled is simply because Ubisoft wanted a live service game to make them money on autopilot. As a matter of fact, Ubisoft is being divided into 5 creative houses, 2 of which are responsible for multiplayer shooters and live service titles only. But anyhow, along with the Prince of Persia remake, Ubisoft has also cancelled 5 other games and shut down 2 studios, which of course has cost them a lot of money. The following transformation-related decisions led to a one-off accelerated depreciation of around 650 million euros. By which it means that we have literally just burned 650 million euros, around 760 million US dollars. That money is just gone, evaporated because of the cancellations and studio closures. On top of that, Ubisoft also delayed 7 games, including the top-secret Black Flag remake, which was expected to drop sometime around March this year. And let's be honest, that game was probably their only shot at making any real money this year. Net bookings are expected at around 1.5 billion euros, translating into a minus 330 million euros gross margin reduction versus the prior guidance, mainly reflecting changes to the current quarter release pipeline. This basically means that Ubisoft expected to make around 330 million euros from these games, but since they are now delayed, that money is also pretty much gone. Not to mention the extra development time will cost them even more money, just like the GTA 6 delay cost Rockstar an extra $60 million. So after putting this all together, the CFO states, non-IFRS earnings are expected at around minus 1 billion euros, which basically means Ubisoft's expecting an operating loss of around 1 billion euros this year. And believe it or not, it gets even worse. Frederick continues and drops this bomb. Also, free cash flow is expected at between minus 400 and minus 500 million euros. And this is the scariest number in the entire report. In case you didn't know, free cash flow basically means the actual cash a company has left after paying their bills, salaries, and running costs. Negative cash flow means more money is going out of the company than coming in. Ubisoft expects a free cash flow of minus 500 million euros, which basically means that Ubisoft is burning through €500 million just to stay alive. They're literally bleeding out roughly 1.3 million euros every single day. Think of it like this. You earn $5,000 per month, but your monthly expenses are $50,000. That's how abysmally mismanaged the company actually is. Now, cancellations and studio closures aside, if things don't improve soon, Ubisoft may have no choice but to start selling off assets, including their IPs. As stated by the CFO himself, we will also continue to consider potential asset divestitures. According to insider reports, Watch Dogs is already being considered as a dead IP internally. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the first one up for sale. And to be honest, I hope they sell off the Prince of Persia IP as well. Now, after going over their previous earnings call, I pretty much predicted all this. In short, their main goal until 2027 is to just survive. So yeah, you can expect more layoffs and more cost cutting with the AI slop shoved into their games. But man, I had no idea things are gonna get this bad. Now, Ubisoft might be bleeding, but thanks to you legends, this channel's growing. So if you want more no bull gaming content, hit that subscribe button and do all the YouTube stuff, like, comment, and all that. There's also this hype feature that can help small channels grow. So if you find this video valuable, tap the hype button so it reaches more people and the channel blows up. Thank you. Now, just recently it was reported that Marc-Alexis Côté, the ex-Assassin's Creed boss, is filing a €1 million lawsuit against Ubisoft. Back in 2025, right after Vantage Studios started operating, the co-CEOs Charlie Guillemot and Christophe Dorenes, who just happens to be related to US Guillemot as well, announced that Marc was offered a leadership role but declined and left voluntarily. A week later, Marc came out with a very lengthy LinkedIn post telling an entirely different story. Ubisoft decided to transfer the leadership of the Assassin's Creed franchise to someone closer to its new organizational structure. A different position was mentioned, but it did not carry the same scope, mandate, or continuity with the work I had been entrusted with in recent years. And this is the funniest part. He also said, "I want to be clear that I hold no resentment. Ubisoft has been my home for all my professional life, and I will always be grateful." And just 3 months later, the guy is suing Ubisoft for €1 million. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Now, a lot of eyebrows were raised when Charlie Guillemot, the son of US Guillemot, was appointed as the co-CEO of Vantage Studios. And there's a common misconception that Marc-Alexis Côté was replaced by Charlie to keep the 3 biggest IPs inside the Guillemot family. Now, yes, it might be true because I guess they're not really comfortable with not owning their best IPs, but the thing is, the co-CEOs were already appointed well before Marc was pushed out of the company. What he wanted was to be the head of franchise, so technically there wasn't really a direct conflict there. Côté's lawsuit claims that a Ubisoft management meeting held in the summer of 2025 revealed that the company was looking to find a head of franchise who would oversee the 3 IPs taken over by the Vantage Studios, and this is the position that would have taken on most of his responsibilities. So understandably, he wanted that position but was told that he was unsuitable and wouldn't be supported by US Guillemot, mainly because the position was to be based in and not in Canada. Instead, he was offered a smaller position, head of production, reporting to the new head of franchise, which was basically a demotion, and Marc didn't accept that. Then later, Ubisoft offered him a leadership position at another creative house which would oversee Ubisoft's second-tier series, and that was also unacceptable for Côté. So of course he decided to walk away, but allegedly made it clear that his departure would require severance pay, and Ubisoft was like, "Get the out of here." Now you might be wondering, but if US Guillemot already appointed his son and his cousin as the co-CEOs of Vantage Studios, why exactly did they push Marc out of the company? Why did they want him gone? The thing is, Marc-Alexis Côté has been responsible for some of the most disappointing entries in the Assassin's Creed franchise. He was the game director on Assassin's Creed 3, the creative director on Syndicate, and then he was a senior producer on Odyssey and Valhalla. 2 of the worst Assassin's Creed games in my opinion. However, they were successful, and following the success of Valhalla, the guy was given full control of the Assassin's Creed franchise, and then he pushed out AC Shadows, which was a steaming pile of dog. So basically, every game he's worked on was either mid or straight up bad, and Ubisoft probably wasn't super confident in his future plans for the series. And let's just get one thing straight. Shadows was not a hugely successful game like the game journals claim it to be, because if it actually were, we wouldn't be talking about the disastrous state of Ubisoft right now. So it makes perfect sense that the leadership wanted him gone, but they couldn't just straight up fire him because, well, that doesn't look good, and mainly because the company was in the middle of restructuring. Now, I'm not a legal expert, but in most cases, if a company fires someone because of restructuring, they have to pay severance and the non-compete clause may no longer hold. That's why companies prefer making life miserable for their employees just to get them to leave voluntarily. And I think that's probably why Marc was being offered smaller roles. They wanted him to leave voluntarily to save money while still keeping him tied down with the non-compete. 2026 is basically the survival year for Ubisoft, and they wouldn't want Marc going to some other company with his 20 years of experience on Assassin's Creed. Now, Marc claims that this was a disguised dismissal, and that's exactly why he's suing Ubisoft, demanding $1.3 million in damages and also for lifting the non-compete so he can work elsewhere. If he wins this, and I have a suspicion he will, paired with all the money flowing out of Ubisoft like water, saying they're cooked is actually an understatement, because from where I'm seeing things, they're utterly which is why they're doubling down on generative AI slop to cut costs while reportedly looking to lay off around 2,000 more employees by 2028, because of course they are. As reported by Insider Gaming, recently announced cost-cutting measures aim to save the publisher an additional 200 million euros by the end of March 2028, which could result in thousands of more developers losing their jobs. On top of that, Ubisoft is set to enforce a return-to-office mandate of 5 days a week while offering annual allowances for working from home. It's a move that Ubisoft says will help with efficiency, creativity, and collective success, but many developers see it as another attempt to force yet more employees to leave the company as a part of cost savings. It's a part of Ubisoft's strategy to prevent announcing mass layoffs to avoid negative press. Over the last few years, Ubisoft has continued to reduce its headcount through similar ploys, including not renewing contracts, giving developers nothing to do in the hopes they'll leave, and enforcing return-to-office mandates. The point is, Ubisoft is trying to get rid of all the bloat and is mainly focusing on right-sizing, which is just a fancy word for layoffs, and restructuring for the fiscal years 26 and 27, with no major games coming out in this duration. The Black Flag remake might drop later this year, but it's also quite possible that it gets pushed to early 2027, probably in the Q4 of the next fiscal year. But sadly, it's probably still coming out, unlike the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. Now yes, it might be a bad news for some people, but I'm actually glad that the game got cancelled. These guys would have f***ed the game beyond recognition anyway. So yeah, I'm relieved that one of my favorite games of all time, the game that I practically grew up with, died with some dignity. We gamers just need to accept the fact that Ubisoft is now simply incapable of making a good game. They're like the ED, the flaccid penis of this industry. They haven't made a good game in years, and they're not gonna make one anytime soon. Though I could be wrong, maybe they're cooking something big which would explain the delays, but to be honest, that's highly unlikely. The gamers as well as the investors have lost all confidence in Ubisoft, and that's why wallets are closing. At the time of me making this video, their stock price is sitting at around just 4 euros and the market cap has dropped to 500 million euros or 640 million US dollars. This mega corporation is not even worth $1 billion anymore. Let that sink in. I think now Tencent can easily acquire another 25% of Ant Studios and gain roughly 50% more control over Ubisoft's most valuable IPs. Because make no mistake, Ubisoft is gonna need another $1 billion, if not more. Now you might argue that Tencent could just straight up buy the whole company, but let's be real here, who the hell would wanna buy Ubisoft and all of its baggage? The smartest move would be to just acquire more and more of Ant Studios while keeping Ubisoft barely alive on a ventilator. And not gonna lie, it would be extremely satisfying to see Ubisoft not being able to own their flagship IPs, but I'll leave you at that. Do let me know what you make of all this in the comments down below. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And yeah, if you think the video is worth it, hype it up so my small channel gets more exposure. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.